Hey, what's going on, guys? So you may have read the title, and that sounds a little, and that sounds a little like depressing, right? But like, I'm gonna take just a few minutes, and I'm gonna go ahead and just talk about a few things, right? And it might get a little rambly and that kind of stuff. And guys that don't want to hang around for that, you don't have to hang around for that. That's fine, right? But like, okay, so let's get into why that that title even exists, right? So it's no secret to like the entire world, that the last couple of years have been rough for everybody, right? And I'm not going to say that it's been particularly hard on me, because that is impossible, because there's a ton of people that's been way worse for. But I had a hard time with like the last 18 months, right? Well, a little bit longer than that, actually. So I'm going to get through the depressing stuff just so that I can get to the point. And that would be, okay, so a lot of people, pitter pattering here and there, guys that put stuff together, right? Um, Much like a lot of people over the last couple of years, like I went through like a divorce, right? And anybody that's went through that and child custody stuff and all of that jazz, right? And circumstances revolving around divorce and everything else, hard as nails on people, right? So there's that difficult thing that a lot of people have to go through. And then, of course, you have the COVID thing itself, along with you have just the fact that price for just simple things like not we're not even talking about like ammo and stuff. We're just talking about like regular groceries and gas and all kinds of stuff. That starts hitting people hard, so then it starts hitting me hard, right? So great, I got that to deal with, right? And so all this stuff is occurring all at once. Um, and especially like post a divorce and making and adjusting to that and that kind of stuff, trying to be, you know, best dad I can be at the same time. When I'm not around my son, it starts getting hard, right? Like something simple, like in a flash, I moved out of my house, and I had a couple of really really good friends that decided they were going to take that were going to take me in, like like I was a stray dog on the street, right? And they were just going to help me work through this stuff before you know got my own place to live and all that jazz, right? And difficult as that was to just deal with, you start making stupid decisions too, because like the depression bugs got is latched on, right? So you know I started doing stupid things, right? Like not eating, and when I am, it's terrible. I'm living off of cardboard and almost cheese, otherwise known as Red Baron pizza. Sleeping like trash, trash. I'm still like running all the time, like twice a day, 2, 3, 4, 5 miles a day or per go, right? And I'm just not taking in food. I'm not sleeping, and eating like trash, drinking like trash. Didn't hit the sauce, thankfully, but so then stuff starts happening. Guys when they do that. For some people, they, when they're not taking care of their bodies, they start gaining a ton of weight. Well, for me, I have to eat like 3,500 a day to maintain weight. So when I'm eating like trash and I'm burning a ton of just running constantly, because I'm not even doing this to like for my benefit anymore. I'm just doing this to work shit out, right? Like I started losing weight, a ton of weight, like to the point where like a guy that's at my height should not be 138 pounds. It's sickly looking, right? So there's a point where all this comes to a head, right? Um, I made a decision during holidays last year, because I'm going through the divorce and everything else. And, before the divorce itself, I had a stepdaughter as well. I made the decision that it's like, hey, you know, I don't want them to be apart. So it's good for them, Thanksgiving, Christmas, that kind of stuff. They're going to be together. But kind of that is that, the friends that I do got, they're out of state now. They're visiting families. I'm by myself. Right? Just stick with me through this. I know it's depressing. So, Thanksgiving, terrible. Christmas shows up, and it snows. Right? And like I'm a sucker for moments like that. Right? So by myself, spent my birthday on my own because that's 2 days before, and I'm in Nashville at this point. So for those of you that are in that area, you may remember, that random dude decided to explode something. Right? I don't even remember really what it was. But like, okay, so now my internet's dead. Friends of mine that are around are out of state. So I can't even really like call anybody either. So there's a point where like I'm sitting in a dark room because I'm depressed and it's silent and I don't even have noise in the background going. So you're at that moment where you're by yourself in the silence, and this is like your truest self, right? And this is where you have like those real talks. And when you're going through stuff like that, some people, I did anyway, you start talking about some really dark things, some stupid shit, basically, right? And sometimes that level of stupidity gets advanced, where you start to trail off into a lot of really retarded things. So you're sitting there, and then, for me at least, I started to think about just previous things that were really hard that I'd been through, right? Because it's not a secret. Anybody that knows me, like in like my mid-20s to early 20s, I was drinking a lot. And by the time I got to like 24, I was drinking a ton, to a point where it was a problem, and I had to cut that off. And, I just I just don't really drink at all now, right? So you think about what it took to get through those issues, and then you start thinking about other stuff that was really tough, right? Like the time that you went from 6'1" to 5'11", compressed a whole bunch of shit in your back, and the rehab from that, and learning how to walk again. Or before that, when you basically destroyed both your knees, right? And those surgeries, and that rehab, and learning how to walk again. And before that, when you blew out your ACL, and rehab from that, and learning how to walk from that. And like all those times that you spent in a wheelchair, on crutches, learning how to walk again, using a cane, braces, that kind of stuff. For a lot of people that don't really know me very well, I've broken a lot of stuff, doing the kind of nonsense that I've gotten into, right? Because like a guy that's super thin is trying to do things that not thin people do, right? And when you're younger and stupid, you don't do things really the right way. You start learning the right way because you're tired of being hurt. And then you start thinking even further, right? And you think about like the first real test that you have ever in your life, and that was when my mom died, cancer. And some people know all this stuff, right? Well, the reason why I'm bringing all this up is not to be depressing, but to help with this understanding. of just what was going on, like in my head. Because when I started to think about all this stuff, because when that fuckery starts getting advanced, you start thinking about a lot of stuff and your brain starts rambling on. And it's just this haze of really negative stuff that comes in all at once. And then something profound happened. You come to the realization that, legitimately, that like, up until this point, I'm 30 then, I'm 31 now. Everything that I have done up to that point was as an implement for somebody else. Right? Whether it's to a team. Right? Sell out for the team. Or it's your family, which is not a bad thing. Neither is selling out for a team. Or it's the army. Because it's not the institution that you're working super hard for. It's the guys you know by first name. I mean, hell, even the company that I'm sitting on right now is predicated on other people. And that in and of itself isn't even really a bad thing. It's what happens if everything that you're doing and you're working so hard for makes you ignore really important stuff about you. What happens when you're concerned for all these things, and especially when the sky starts falling, when you don't really know how to do things for yourself anymore. So, again, I'm sitting there, it's silent, and then a word pops up in my head. No. No. We're not doing this. We're not going down this road. I'm not going to let it go down this road. Because for the first time in my entire life, I'm going to learn how to do things that I want to do that fulfill me personally. Instead of everything that I'm doing revolving around someone, something else. And of course, obviously, yeah, there's a good balance that you have to have with everything else. Because if you're taking care of yourself, then people you're trying to take care of benefit too. Because that only makes you a better dad. In my case, that only makes you a better soldier. It only makes you a better instructor, right? So then I began to do things that were actually good for me. We start to accelerate to the right on the calendar a bit, and I'm eating better, finally. Like actually buying groceries, going to the store, taking rest days. What a concept. Doing other stuff. I started lifting again. Getting into fighting gyms. It's been a long time since I stepped into a boxing gym, for instance. Still love Muay Thai, still love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I tell you what, you step away from boxing for a little while and you're about to have a bunch of moisture popped off your face. Right? And the reason why this is so important is because, I'd gotten to that state and depression hit really hard. And it doesn't matter who's gaining or losing weight or whatever, but there's a point where there's a shift in your appearance to the point where other people know this isn't healthy. And for me, it's when, I'm 5'11" and I weigh 138 pounds. Right? that might be a clue. So then I started doing things that I would just contemplate rather than do. You know, for the longest time, I wanted to start up like a gaming channel. Why? I'm a nerd. Okay? Like, I am a nerd. I've been a nerd my entire life. Been a fan of Star Wars forever, except for these recent movies are terrible. All of them. Book of Boba Fett, trash to me. You know, The Mandalorian, it's okay, it's better than the worst things ever. Got a long list of reasons why I'm not a huge fan of everything Disney Star Wars, right? But I've been a nerd like my entire life. So I did it. It's early. I only have a couple of videos up, but I actually decided I was going to be like, you know what, fuck it, let's do it. I even have a couple of videos up. If you want to go check them out, I'll leave a link in the description below. You know, the first one is, you know, about, you know, free space and why you should fucking play it because it's great. You know, and the other tries to make, look, like, you know, the Halo assault rifle makes sense, which is a task to try and make it make sense because the format is basically like, you know, I'm a guy within that universe that's basically talking about it, implementing it, things like that, and, you know, just shit, just nerd shit, okay? And more of those videos are likely to follow because, again, I'm a nerd. I'm working on projects here on this channel that revolve around, for instance, why I still trust my life to Glock and why I still think that as a complete package, everything revolving around it, like all things considered, it's still the best striker-fired handgun. You know, even though there is nicer stuff when you look at it, there's always little things, you know. So a documentary style video is going to come up for that because I figured out a good format while doing this nerd shit on how I'm going to do that kind of video because I've been wanting to do videos like that forever. So more stuff revolving around that, like the history of the AR, M16, M4, that whole series of stuff, that is likely to come too because I figured out how to do more things because I got into this nerd shit, for instance. You know? And you start to notice that when you start to finally take care of yourself, other things that you used to do come back. And it starts to warm your heart. And then you can share that with people. And for me, like helping people out and being a good dad, that's that's at the very core of my soul, right? Like I really enjoy doing that. I started to gain weight again. You know, I'm laughing more. My son got interested in Halo. You have no idea how cool that is for me. Okay? I started watching football again. Because like I grew up a Dolphins fan, so I absolutely know what hope before pain feels like, right? Or I would play it in a neighborhood, and that would just scale up to retarded levels later on, you know? But the whole time, I'm sitting there avoiding it or just not getting involved in it because I'm doing a whole bunch of other things, too busy with other stuff, you know? And then you surround yourself with stupid people if you're not paying attention, right? And then you have all these fucking people, for instance, that preach that they're all about freedom and that kind of stuff. But then when they get into like mainstream media, which you know only really panders to what establishment is at the time. So you're going to have a ton of people that are going to have a lot of lefty views fucking around in media. And then they're going to sit there and be like, I hate football now. I hate all team sports because some idiots decided they were going to hijack the mic when dummies have always existed. Right? And then it takes you a while to figure out that, like, you know, if you're supposed to be about freedom and stuff, then why can't you handle other people that think differently than you without hating them? Isn't that what makes us the civilized ones? right? So then you stop giving a shit about that, and then you start to quit being such a giant gay, and you have fun again. And I started really paying attention to football again, catching up, you know? Like, I got turned into a Tom Brady fan, even though I grew up hating him because Dolphins, right? Because, like, you start researching that guy, and that is probably one of the most influential figures that I have never studied. Who knew, right? And then you start opening your mind to stuff, and you start really paying attention to things, and then you recognize, oh wow, I'm gaining weight again. In a year, I went from looking like I'm starving to death to 165 pounds. So I'm starting to look like a regular human again. You know, starting to get really close to the best shape I've ever been in my entire life. And that's after all of the stuff I've broken. Because I'm smarter now. And I'm taking care of myself. And I'm not burning the candle at both ends. I'm not killing myself. And you know what's funny? One of the biggest reasons why I actually came back, me the person, is because of the mindset that I learned and really like studied and delved into while digging into this industry, talking to the right people, you know, going to the right classes, for instance, taking my notes, studying things, and humans too. You know, it's that grit, it's that fighter mindset, it's that open mind approach, it's the sophistication of how you process information, all of those things that were taught to me at a professional level, and then taking that processing and integrating it with how it is that you prepare to teach others, right? Because realistically speaking, the whole reason why this channel exists was because there were a lot of really bad channels out there, right? That would just try to sell you a bunch of bullshit that you don't need for stupid reasons that didn't have any practicality whatsoever. You know, like the fucking guy, I forget, it was probably nothing fancy or something, that tried to sit there and talk all kinds of bullshit on like the Knight's Armament SR-15 because it was like 4 bologna sandwich slices heavier than his bullshit ass Rock Island, or I'm sorry, Rock River Arms AR, or whatever the fuck, some stupid goddamn thing, right? Whatever, right? So I started this channel because guys like that would fire like 20 rounds and be like, good to go, right? But like, the more that you learn, the more that you figure out the mentality of the guys that have came before you. And it's that mentality that persists in me to this day and that dragged me out of that really crappy spot. And it's weird that I'm this far along in my adult life to figure out how to actually, really take care of myself so that it would help other people. That's why this title is what it is. That's how this industry saved my life. No heroic gun battles and like catching RPG frickin' rounds and whipping them back at dudes, or that one bridge that we had to fucking defend or whatever that was at the turning point of the guy. I don't know, Saving Private Ryan story. Point is that I'm not sitting here taking out tiger tanks with a 45, okay? But this industry and the right guys put the right stuff in my head to help claw me out of probably the most difficult year and a half I've ever had upstairs. So, for guys like that, and for guys like you, that are still the reason why I'm learning, why I'm evolving, and why I'm doing what I'm doing. I appreciate it. The guys that have been here since like 2012 when I started this with like a friggin' iPod Nano camera, fun fact. Thanks. I'm gonna stick around for a while. I'm gonna do my best to transfer what I can to other people, and I appreciate what you guys have done for me. So, that being said, Regular Guys Firearm is the last defense against tyranny. Be easy.